Winter can be a tough season for so many reasons. Cold, congestion, and that dry winter air that leaves your skin itchy and lips chapped. There are tons of products that promise relief, but I prefer to stick to the tried and true solutions that actually work. That's why I love Vicks Vapo. Fun fact, did you know it's the third most recognizable scent in the world? The smell of Vicks Vapo reminds me of my childhood, and it's so soothing. And let's talk about their humidifiers, not just for when you're sick, but even when you're feeling fine. They're a game changer for adding moisture back in the air, helping relieve that dry, uncomfortable winter skin and lips. I'll admit, I was hesitant to try a humidifier at first, but this one is super easy to use and clean thanks to the wide tank opening. Just fill it up when it's empty and swap out the Vapo pads as needed. No hassle, just comfort. Find the Vicks Cool Relief along with Vapo Steam and a variety of Vapo pads on Amazon. There's a special offer on Amazon on the Vicks Cool Relief Humidifier where you can get 20% off your purchase. Just go to Amazon.com and search Vicks VUL 600 Cool Relief Humidifier. It has a blue tank with the white in the center. Be sure to click the coupon to get the discount. You need this for wintertime comfort.
We're ultimately moving forward. We're not going back to an old part of ourselves. We want to be back to like some place the way things used to be, but we're moving forward. So what are some things that you can do intentionally to allow those things to shake off so that you're not carrying them forward with you? Because it's a cleanup and clean out time, and there's some fresh energy on the other side.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 654 with guest Asha Frost. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you're here. I have a guest today that I have been wanting to have on for a really long time, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her. But before I do that, it is not too late for you to sign up to come to the last 2 calls for the celebration of 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life, revised and updated. Free group Zoom coaching calls. It's a lot of words, I know, that I'm trying to put together on a Monday morning as I'm recording this to you. But at any rate, we had one yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean January 21st, 2025. We're doing another one tomorrow. And then we're going to do another one next week. So these are particularly great because they are so in the style of new year, new you. Yesterday, we talked about what it means to take responsibility for your one precious life. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about cannonballing out of your comfort zone, stepping out of your comfort zone. What does that mean for you? What do you need to work on before doing that? What are the steps that you need to take before you start doing that more often? And then next week, we're going to put it all together. So if you are late to the party, have no fear. You can still join us. That link is in the show notes, andreaowen.com/52-ways. You'll see a button to sign up for that. And you also get a free PDF. I'll let you go over there and see it. I would love to see your beautiful smiling face on Zoom. And if you don't want to sign up, you don't want to come on video, that's okay too. That's okay too. You don't have to. I won't make you. You're a grown adult. You can make your own decisions in regard to that. All right, let's get into it. Let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Asha Frost is an indigenous healer, bestselling author, speaker, and guide. Drawing on her ancestral knowledge and innate gifts, Asha has become a prominent figure in the field of indigenous healing, garnering recognition on both local and international platforms. She has created transformative experiences for thousands with her heart, profound wisdom, and unwavering dedication to her heritage. As an author, Asha has eloquently captured the essence of indigenous wisdom in her written words. Her book, You Are the Medicine and the Deck, The Sacred Medicine Oracle, are powerful testaments to the healing potential that lies within all of us. So without further ado, here is Asha. Asha, thank you so much for being here.
Such a gift. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on. I feel like we've had this on the books for so long and I've been looking forward to it for forever. We're finally getting around to it mid-December when it's so busy. I like to jump into the deep end right from the beginning. And so in your work, you talk a lot about vulnerability and embracing that. So can you start by telling us how vulnerability has helped you in your healing and your growth? And then how can you help others really sink in and lean into that as well in their life?
I think for me, vulnerability is just being truthful. It's just being honest. It's connecting to the parts of us that maybe want to be acknowledged and seen. And I think there's a way to do that in when we are committed to our healing process, where we can bring forward those stories that we're mending and tending to.
Mhm.
And I find that since I've been a storyteller for about 20 years, that my stories connect people to themselves and their medicine and the way that they want to show up in the world. So I think that in sharing vulnerably, it helps others to see themselves in my stories. And then it helps them to perhaps maybe invites them into a deeper healing process for their path.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception too about vulnerability. It doesn't necessarily need to be that you are sharing your deepest, darkest secrets to the barista at the coffee shop or on social media. Like these are just small stories, even that you tell in small increments over time with the right people. That's how I've found it works best. And you mentioned the word medicine, and you talk about reclaiming the medicine within. So, can you talk to us about what that might look like for people who've, I meet a lot of people who feel like they have lost touch with their quote unquote purpose. They've lost touch with even their own identity and who they are. So, can you speak to that connection?
Yeah, I think that we all have periods of that at times in our lives where we feel a little bit lost or disoriented. And I
Mhm.
think that we come here in a vision from creator of this divine spark. They knew our medicine. They implant it, like plant a seed inside of us. And it's about remembering throughout our whole lives. So we go through challenges, maybe ups and downs as invitations to remember those medicine sparks and to come home to who we are. And I think that our whole lifetime journey really is about that. And sometimes I think we find that gold in the medicine through those challenges. And when we have to go through a hard time or a dark time, on the other end of it, then we take that gold up with us and then we can integrate it, we can align it, and we're back on that purpose energy. But that place of disorientation or those liminal spaces are the places that are the most challenging. And I think that as human beings, we're going to go through many of those because we're cyclical and seasonal beings. And so if you're in that space, just know on the other end of this, there is some gold to be discovered and you're going to be closer to who you truly are.
I'm in one of those spaces right now, Asha. Like the end, well, I'm about to turn 50 too. I love that you use the term, what did you call it? Medicine spark?
Yeah, the medicine spark. Yeah.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're not saying that that's actual plant medicine or any kind of medicine that you actually take. Like these are sort of, one might also refer to them as wisdom nuggets of, nuggets of wisdom or offerings from our intuition, our highest self, in terms of using that to move us forward into a, using air quotes, bigger and better version of ourselves. Is that fair? Am I translating that correctly?
Yeah. Well, I wrote a book called You Are the Medicine. And the framework of that book is basically that, first of all, you have all that wisdom that you need within you. And it is through your journey that you gather those pieces. And I don't know if it's bigger, better aspect of yourself or just a more remembered part, because I think we come here knowing that spark and we're always returning to that. It's life that delivers these messages. It's the systems that come into our lives that tell us that we're not enough or that we need to be something that we're not. So we really are returning with this remembering. And I think that happens through all of these, I don't know, turmoils, I guess, in our lives. But that liminal space is so powerful. I know people want to jump out of it because it feels so uncomfortable. We want to go to the next thing. And society also really values the bright, sparkly, that spring energy,
Right.
that summer energy, like spread your wings, go become that better version of yourself. But it's in the liminal spaces that we gather that deeper wisdom and we become the elder, I think, in many ways. Then we can share that with the world. So yeah, those medicine pieces are maybe parts of our soul, like soul retrieval parts that are coming back to who we are.
I am definitely experiencing that. And do you have any words of wisdom or advice for people who feel like they're stuck in that place? Like whether or not there is such a thing as being stuck, because, it's not really up to us how long we spend in those places.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people who feel stuck and or maybe even that they aren't sure that when they get into these cycles that they're gathering those medicine sparks, what would you say to those people? Like, is there a way for them to make it easier on themselves to look for them and see them and gather them?
In my teachings, I teach a lot about animal spirit medicine, and that on the medicine wheel is the direction of the west. So it's the fall. Mm-hmm. So it's when things are falling apart, things are dying. I think if you can surrender to that, which is so hard for human beings, but if you can think of yourself as that tree whose leaves are falling and dying and moving to the earth to mulch and compost into something more beautiful, if you can be the tree and shake, you can do some somatic work where you're just shaking off the dead parts. You can bring something to a death ceremony where you're actually intentionally saying, these are the parts that are feeling really hard and challenging. Light a candle for them, do a blessing for them, put an altar out for them. Be intentional about it and meet the energy instead of trying to rush through it or saying, oh, it's not happening. Like, I'm going to be back to my normal self, because we're ultimately moving forward. We're not going back to an old part of ourselves. We want to be back to like some place the way things used to be, but we're moving forward. So what are some things that you can do intentionally to allow those things to shake off so that you're not carrying them forward with you, because it's a cleanup and clean out time and there's some fresh energy on the other side. So those are some of the rituals and ceremonies I do with my clients when we're in that space.
I love that you mentioned pretty much all of the ideas are around some kind of ritual. A lot of my listeners, I mean, I don't mean to throw you all under the bus, but like to stay up in their head. It's like, no, I'm going to think my way through it. Like, let me just sit with it and overthink it and et cetera, et cetera. And as you were saying that, I thought to myself, oh, you know what I do that I didn't even realize that I sort of market as a ritual is even just the act of washing my hair. When I'll have like a rough couple of days and I feel blessed enough that I don't have to wash my hair, but maybe like twice a week. And there are days where I'll just be like, oh my God, I just am all up in my head and getting triggered and not feeling like myself and maybe beating myself up a little bit. And I go and wash my hair and I feel like a new version of myself.
I
Literally
love that
and
so
figuratively.
It's so beautiful. Well, the energy of water is so purifying too, right? So having that all around, probably if you're in that thinking space and thinking, I can't get out of my head, you're purifying your head, you're purifying your mind, and you're dropping down into a different space, I think, where the healing actually happens, because I don't think our minds can heal us. The memories exist in our waters, in our bodies, in our blood memory. And I think that if we can sink into those places, we're going to find more healing there.
Oh, I love that. I just had to sit with that for a moment. When you take a quick ad break and we get back, I want to ask you about ancestral wisdom. So we'll be right back. Today's podcast is sponsored by strawberry.me. Feeling like life's a little chaotic, or maybe you're stuck in neutral when you really want to be moving forward? That's where strawberry.me can help. Their personal coaching services could be the turning point you've been looking for to create the life you truly want. Here are 4 reasons coaching might be exactly what you need. Number 1, gain clarity. A coach helps you cut through the chaos and focus on what truly matters, aligning your goals with your values. Number 2, set goals. Turn your clarity into actionable, meaningful goals that reflect your purpose. Number 3, build a plan. Your coach will guide you in creating a step-by-step plan to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. Number 4, you stay committed. With accountability and support, your coach will keep you motivated and on track, even when life gets tough. Ready to get started? Visit strawberry.me/noise to take a quick quiz and get matched with your ideal coach. Plus, enjoy 20% off your first month's membership. That's strawberry.me/noise. If you're a woman over 40 dealing with perimenopause, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. Did you know there are so many perimenopause symptoms? Hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness, and libido change, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, joint pain, bone loss, and fracture risk. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're experiencing and know how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. Visits and prescriptions are covered by major insurance providers, no membership fees or hidden costs. If you're uninsured or Medicare is out of network under your plan, they also offer affordable cash payment for services. I know for me, as I'm about to turn 50 in 2025, finding a doctor that specializes in perimenopause and menopause is incredibly important. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
This episode is brought to you by Companion. Iris and Josh seem like the perfect match, but when a weekend getaway turns into a nightmare, Iris realizes that things aren't as perfect as they appear. From the creators of Barbarian and the studio that brought you The Notebook comes a twisted tale of modern romance and the sweet satisfaction of revenge. Companion, only in theaters January 31st. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
All right. Before the break, I mentioned ancestral wisdom, and I know that your work centers around connecting with that and indigenous teaching. So how can someone who feels disconnected from their roots begin to reconnect with their own heritage and that identity?
Yeah, I think the first thing that's really important to do is to acknowledge the fracture, because I think we try to skip over that and try to, mend those and tend to those relationships. But if there's a fracturing in your actual family or lineage, if something happened and there's trauma or wounding there, it's really important to grieve that. It's really important to find out the reason why you don't have connection to your ancestors. Mm-hmm. So many folks come to me and say, I don't know any of my ancestors. And there's a reason for that, because this happened to my grandparents, or there was this that happened, this trauma that happened in my ancestry. So I think knowing the story is really important. And then just knowing, oh, that's why I don't have a connection. And then trusting that if you didn't like your ancestors or some of your family members, you don't have to connect to those beings in particular, right? But there are lots of stories waiting for you. And for me, the most powerful way of connecting is to get out of our minds and to go into our bodies. Every time I do a shamanic journey or an energy healing with someone, the answers are all there in our bones and our blood. And I've done this with thousands of people now, and people will always get a message or an energy or feeling or sensation from their ancestors that will feel familiar. And to me, like building that trust inside our bodies in our dream time, we don't value that anymore, but our ancestors come to us in our dreams. They come when we sit on the land. They come when we meditate and when we're in quiet time. We've just been colonized away from those things. So there are many ways we can do that. But I think acknowledging perhaps why you don't have connection to that, that's the first step. And then from there, you can say, okay, now I'm going to invite in this connection, because our ancestors, much like angels or angelic archangels or the animal spirit realm, they are here to support us and to guide us. And that has been the most profound connection, I think, for most of my clients.
Can you, since you're a storyteller, and I'm totally springing this on you, but do you have a story that you would be able to tell us about some work that you've done based on like what you just talked about that was, moving to you or profound, or that you think that my audience would enjoy?
I think I want to tell a story about generational trauma, because this relates to healing with the ancestors. Mm-hmm. And my son, when he was 4, he went to school for the first time and he was terrified. And he'd been in daycare since he was really little. So the teachers were like, it's because he's not with you. And I said, no, he hasn't been with me forever. But he was terrified. And one day he left my arms and he was like, do not let them snatch me away, mommy. Don't let them snatch me away. And his face was terrified. And I thought, we've never used that framework in our house. I've never said those words before. Where is that coming from? And my grandparents were in residential school in Canada, and his other grandparents were in the Holocaust, or great grandparents in the Holocaust. So there's this generational imprint and this wounding that lives within his bones and his blood that was arising for him. Mm-hmm. And it was in that moment where I thought, if I don't heal these generational imprints in me and the trauma and harm in me, then I can see how this is going to play out in my children, and then their children, and then their children. So it really showed the importance of doing this ancestral work, going into those imprints and healing some of those stories in myself. So then the 7 generations forward can be free of that, and they can have a new dream that they can live into. And it also heals generations back. So I want to tell that story because I think it's so important whether or not you have children or descendants, those memories, they live within us so powerfully. And it doesn't have to be that complicated to unearth them or get them to come forward. But I think it's really valid work. So I really encourage people, if there's stuff that keeps coming up in your life that you think, this feels maybe not like mine, or feels a bit deeper, that I can't access it, just know there's probably some ancestral healing that has to happen.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate you telling the story about your son too. And it reminds me, I've had a woman on my podcast twice, and she's very experienced and seasoned in breath work, started doing it when she was a teenager for a couple decades now. I'm working with her outside of my podcast, and it's so my, one of my teenagers is 15. I have two teenagers, and I'm noticing things coming up for me where I sort of freeze around it. And I know now, thankfully, one of the side effects of doing this work for a living is that the self-awareness that I have is I get very curious when things like that happen, when I'm behaving in ways that are unlike me, especially when I feel like I can't move forward in a behavior that I know is best, where I freeze. I will look around and say, like, what is happening? Scan my body. What's going on? And I realized it is directly related to some of my mother wounding. So I'm like, oh, here we are. That this one particular teenager is holding the mirror up to my face and saying, like, this is the next work for you to do. So that's what I'm working on. And I believe you. I think that if we pause long enough and get curious without making assumptions, without making whatever we're thinking about mean anything about our worth or anything like that, or anyone else, if we can pause and get quiet, maybe go wash our hair, I don't know, the answers will come to you. And that's what I've experienced. And it does take practice and trust, trusting in your own resilience, trusting in your own spirit guides. I believe it. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And I really love this whole thing with the hair washing, because I always get the biggest inspiration in the shower. And maybe it is because I'm washing my hair. I think that there's that conduit of water. So I'm going to include that into my rituals.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah. And I read somewhere that you get into some kind of brainwave state that the research shows, like when you're like doing things like doing dishes, sometimes driving, taking a shower, washing your hair, and it's a meditative state. Is what happens is we're allowing, just thoughts to pass so we can get into that meditative state. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that. As a medicine woman, you've likely faced a lot of skepticism and resistance. So how do you stay grounded in your truth? And maybe, like, if you could, like, provide, like, what wisdom and advice do you have for people who are afraid to step into their own truth, whether it's something, a new entrepreneurial vision or anything else?
I don't know if I've experienced skepticism necessarily. I think that for some reason that hasn't been part of my path. What's been part of my path is when I courageously use my voice to speak up about things that are really important to me and to Indigenous people, and to highlight things that are going on in this world. I get pushback. So I had this letter go viral in 2019. I got a lot of pushback, and I wasn't ready for it. My capacity to have all of that pushback wasn't in my system yet. Right. So it was like I fell off this cliff, and I was put into all of this massive visibility, massive vulnerability. And it was before my book came out. So it was a practice. So I think the first thing is, I'm still here. I didn't die. I'm a very sensitive person. Like, I'll say I'm highly, highly sensitive. So this was terrifying for me to think that people would be mad at me, that they would yell at me, that they would email me. Like, hundreds of emails or DMs came to me that were angry. And so I'm still here. And I think it builds resilience to do the things sometimes, you find the courage in a way, and you build that courage. And then it leads to gorgeous things, because then it led to my book deal, and then to Oracle decks. And so I think that sometimes there's that flame inside of you that needs to be listened to. If you have that, if you don't listen, just think about, we only have this short lifetime, right? So it's about, listening to that and moving forward with that. I've learned so deeply that I'm not going to please everyone. I was like a people pleaser for so long, and I operated my life around that a lot. And now my biggest fears or vulnerability are putting things out there and wondering what indigenous communities are going to say. That is the biggest fear because they don't always agree with me sharing teachings the way that I do. And those are the people I want to belong to. So in a vulnerable place, that is where my heart goes. And that's where my fear is. What are the elders going to say? What are these people going to reflect back to me? And so far it's been beautiful. I've had a lot of younger indigenous people just be so happy for my work because they don't have people to teach them anymore. It's been fractured and taken away. So I also want to share that your biggest fears may never come true. And it might be the opposite of that. The most beautiful things might happen from those fears. And so you have to take those steps forward.
Thank you for that. When you were saying that, it made me think of, I was having a conversation with someone lately and it just sort of tumbled out of my mouth. I said, I've always been the type of person who I identify as an optimist, an enthusiastic optimist, but also the way I described it is I said, I believe in impossible things. And by saying that, what I mean is I believe in miracles. I believe exactly what you said, like that our biggest fears may never come true. Like our wildest dreams might actually be just on the other side of our comfort zone. And it's also vulnerable to not just believe that, but I think to say it, because we live in a world where the internet sure has changed things, where we can really get trampled on by talking about and naming our deepest truths, and people doubt us and things like that. But I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that sometimes we can make up a story that people who are, like someone like you, like deeply connected to her ancestral roots, who are doing this amazing work in the world, this amazing spiritual work in the world, that you must have gotten to a place where you don't feel that like tremor of shame and being excluded from your own community, but we all do because we're all human.
That's right. That's right. And there's different layers of it, right? It's just the world brings you new opportunities to heal that a little bit deeper and to love yourself a little bit more. And I can say that even I was thinking, I just launched a deck this week and I was thinking, oh my goodness, with my book, I did not read any reviews. I was terrified to go in and see the reviews. And now I have the capacity to go and meet them and read them, whatever they say. And we grow and we don't even notice that we grow sometimes. And we can look back thinking, oh my goodness, look how far I've come. And I think that's the space I'm in right now. I'm trying to honor how far I've come. And I think it's important for all of us to celebrate that.
Yes. This is why I prefer to keep old journals. I know that's not for everyone, but I like to look and read how far I've come, and even just to watch the trajectory of progression. Like that to me is so beautiful. And it allows me to honor the former versions of myself and hold her with compassion and sometimes reverence. So thank you for sharing that. I mentioned the internet and full of distractions and noise. And you and I are recording this in December of 2024, where, on the heels of a very noisy election here in the United States. And how do you advise your community and your clients to create sacred space, perhaps in your daily or weekly life, to be able to listen to that inner wisdom? Because I ask this question of a lot of people because I like to hear different people's advice. And so how do you advise people to make that space?
I will say it was a lot easier before social media existed. I started my business before social media. And I think that at that time, it was easier. Even when I was sharing and teaching these things, people got it. And now there's so much pulling us out of ourselves. There's so many things that are trying to pull us out of who we are. I think I really love to talk about the systemic impacts of like colonialism, capitalism, and how those things ultimately really impact us. And sometimes just even connecting, is this my stuff or is this like collective heaviness, collective systemic harm that's impacting my energy? So I like to start with presence and just think, where am I at? Like how much of other people's stuff is like clogging up my field right now? So that, because that will impact us. It will help. It won't help with connection. Obviously, it's going to really like scatter that around. So doing a clearing first always, I think, is important. Asking how much of this is mine? How much of this is theirs? What can I clear to kind of move to the earth, to mulch and compost it before I start? heart. And then connecting, I mean, it sounds so simple, but we don't do it anymore. Can you stand barefoot on the land? Can you go to the forest and lie belly to belly on Mother Earth? Can you be in the midst of the trees and just breathe? Those, like, they're not high technology things, but they are the things that are going to bring you back to your soul. And if everybody did that, I think that humanity would heal in some way. We'd be able to relate to one another better, more kindly. And the other thing I love is, like, I'd love to bring in some nuance. I love the medicine of nuance and holding space for difference. I just think that that's really deep medicine that happens when you look at creation, because every tree is different. Every flower is different. Every blade of grass is different. And they still get along. They still can commune with one another and love each other. Why can't we do that? And why has the internet become this place of, like, just so much fighting and so much unkindness is the way I see it.
Yes, I agree with you on that. And I want to underscore the part about going outside, and it's very cold right now. And I'm in North Carolina. It was a hot summer. And now it's very cold. We're not even officially in winter yet, but going outside, putting your bare feet on the ground. I'm in a separation and about to go through a divorce, and it started last year in 2023. And I hiked more than with my dog, more than I ever have in my life. And that saved me. Like, honestly, I was just all the time, every day I was hiking. And in North Carolina, it's beautiful here. We have lots of trees, and just really making an effort also to do that in silence and not have my headphones in with a podcast or even music. And if I did choose, it was usually music, but just, and then when I would go on a walk with people, a couple of them said at the end of the walk, they said, I've never walked with anyone who kept stopping me to point out the trees. Or I get really excited when I see crows because I think they're my friends, and I have one tattooed on my arm. There's the oak trees in North Carolina. Like, are you kidding me? Especially when they lose all their leaves and you can see how much they look like a human placenta. Like, to me, that is what? Like, that is phenomenal. Like, why would you not want to stop and see the majesty of that? Like, that's, I've learned now as I've gotten a little bit older to, like, when my soul taps me on the shoulder and says, stop and look at that and just really take it all in, I do that. And I point that out. And I'm making a very clear point about it because I do think that has helped me heal. Mm-hmm. It's not just about the walk. It really, truly is being out there and honoring Mother Nature and all that she has given to us and expressing gratitude towards it. That's my soapbox on getting out in nature. It's more than just the walk for me.
I love that. And I love the energy of awe. I think, like, that's what you're expressing. It's like awe and wonder, which brings us back to our child selves, which we all need. And imagine we could look with that awe. Like, my boys are still in the phase where they're in awe of the moon, and I'm still in awe of the moon. So I really find so much magic in that, or the stars, right? Like, again, if we could look around instead of being so just tuned into our phones, and we can open our gaze back up to those beautiful things, we would all heal.
Yeah. The moon and I have had such an amazing relationship. My mom loves to tell the story of when I was a toddler, and it was one of the first words she said I ever uttered. And anytime I could see it, I would point to it and utter the word over and over and over again. And still now, even just the other night, it was a perfect half moon, and I came outside even though it was so cold. And she was so bright, and I just stood there and stared at her. And I think about things like, isn't it so awesome that everyone on the earth is looking at the same moon? Like, that to me is like, that is so amazing. Like, we can't really say that about anything else except, stars and things, because, like, mountains are in different places, but the moon, we all see it. It's the same one. Like, that to me is such a connection to every single human, and it matters. So those are the things I lean into of I guess that is more awe and wonder and childlike. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We have to take one more break. And when we get back, I want to ask you about the seasons and cycles of life. So we'll be right back.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.
Hey friends, if you're facing divorce, thinking about it, or navigating the chaos it can bring, I've got something just for you. I'm Kate Anthony, and I host the New York Times recommended The Divorce Survival Guide podcast, your one-stop resource for surviving and thriving through divorce. Each week, we dive into everything from emotional healing and co-parenting to legal strategies and starting over. You'll hear from top experts, powerful guest stories, and maybe a little tough love along the way. Because divorce, it's hard, but you don't have to do it alone. This isn't just about getting through it. It's about rebuilding and reclaiming your life on the other side. Whether you're in the middle of a messy split or planning your next chapter, I've got your back. So hit that follow button and join me on the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, because survival isn't the end, it's just the beginning.
Okay, so as we're recording this, the 21st of December is winter solstice. So probably by the time this comes out, people will be looking at going into spring. And I know you've written about honoring the seasons and cycles of life. So how can we use these natural rhythms? I personally, I want to lean more into that than like January 1st is the calendar year. Like, how can we use those to better align ourselves with our own growth or our own healing?
Yeah. So I think this is so vital. And as I talked about, that fall energy of the disorientation, letting go, and then the winter season, our animal bodies are already set. I know everybody's like, this season seems darker than ever before. And I think there was so much collectively going on that contributed to that. But the medicine wheel is changing. Winter in the Northern Hemisphere is calling us. I have a bear behind me. If we were on video, you'd see it. So bear medicine is the one that runs the winter season. And bear reminds us that hibernation and rest is deep medicine. Bear reminds us about having the courage to set boundaries and say no. Bear reminds us to listen to our bodies, because our bodies, when we bypass them, then we always kind of mess up or something blows up in our face, right? Bear's like, no. You knew that you needed to say no to that, or you knew you were too exhausted and your capacity wasn't great. So winter reminds us of that. And as human beings, we want to rush out of that time because, capitalism tells us there's no time to rest. Yeah. You're not allowed to do that. So how can we lean back into Mother Earth doesn't skip over cycles. Mother Earth goes through them beautifully with ease and grace. Can we lean into that and trust we need them all? On the medicine wheel, every single season is equal. So we need that disorientation. We need that wintering and that resting, right? Just as much as we need the expansion and the growth and the putting our gifts out there in the world. We need it all. And if we skipped over those, really important cycles, then we're going to cycle back really quick. That's what I notice. If I ever skip out of that disorientation and death phase, then it's going to come back even quicker. So I think it's such a beautiful thing to lean in and trust that this season, where you are right now, you're enough. You are enough. You don't need to rush through it. It might even be a year of being in this season or even longer. Trust that your body knows, your spirit knows, and the medicine wheel always turns. So you'll go to a next season very soon.
I love that so much. I know you said that the seasons are all, equal, but I really love spring. I do. I've always felt so. I'm originally from San Diego. I was there for 37 years, and then I moved. I've slowly made my way across now to the East Coast, where you experience the seasons where I hadn't before for almost 4 decades, and it was then that I realized, oh, I really enjoy spring the most, because that to me feels like, okay, we can start again, and I get inspiration from Mother Nature's tapestry of spring, that no matter what, spring will always come. No matter what, winter will always end. Like the quote unquote darkness and difficulty that winter brings for people and other species, that will end up ending. And maybe that's why I love spring so much. Maybe it's not just the flowers, but yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, spring is here too, right? We have like full seasons. Like there's just everything has its own flavor and energy. And spring is so hopeful. It's so hopeful. Even the other day, I thought, oh my gosh, it seems kind of like a spring day, but I know it's not a spring day, but I sort of wish it was, because we still have to go through the winter. But we do know in the solstice, the light's coming back, right? So there's hope still starting, that the darkest night of the year is coming, and then the light will begin to come back.
Yeah, we'll turn that corner. Can you tell us about your deck that has, well, by the time this is airing, it will have just come out. So what, for people that don't know even like really what a deck is, like what is this one?
It's an oracle deck, and it's called the Animal Elders Oracle, and it's an animal spirit deck. So for anybody who loves to connect to animals, it is, first of all, based in indigenous medicine teachings. It's got animals that I have a relationship with, that are from my territories and lands. I'm in so-called Ontario and so-called Canada, and it is, it's from those territories. So it's from here, and it's magic. It's magic. So you can shuffle them every day, pull a card, ask, what's my spirit animal today? You can ask, what animal is guiding me? What animal is protecting me? Animal allies are here as guardians and kin and friends and beings that really want to help you remember who you are. So to me, when you pull a card, those pieces you've forgotten that we talked about at the beginning, those medicine pieces and parts, they're there for you to say, hey, be more compassionate with yourself. Hey, you need to protect your energy. Like all of these little reminders are in the deck. And the artwork's so gorgeous. It's by this indigenous artist, Holly Pichette, from my lands and territories. And it's just beautiful. I'm so proud of it. I love it.
I can tell. I know people can't see your face right now because we only released the audio, but you just lit up when you talked about it. Thank you. Before we close up, is there anything else that you want to circle back to say in order for you to feel complete, or anything new you want to say to feel complete?
I'm so grateful that you've had me here, and I loved how deep we went. And I do hope that folks remember, if they're in that disorientation phase or they're feeling a little bit lost, that the season will change and that you're enough where you are.
Oh, thank you so much. And where can people go to learn more about your work and your decks and your work that you do with people?
Yeah, so the Jackson book is available anywhere books are sold. And my website's ashafrost.com. And I am mostly on Instagram under asha.frost. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And everyone, all those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Asha, for being here. And listeners, thank you so much for your time. I'm so incredibly grateful for it. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans, and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free, and get your hands on that free podcast feed.
When it comes to raising kids, there's so much to consider. Things like, what do we feed them? When do we feed them? How do they sleep? What does it look like to raise kind kids? How does their nervous system work? How do I keep myself calm? What are my triggers? There's so much that comes into play, and we are distilling all of that information for you at Voices of Your Village podcast, where we bring experts in the field of early childhood and education and psychology and across the board so that you don't have to comb the internet for information. You get to show up and hang out and have shame-free, judgment-free conversations and insights into what it looks like to raise kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent humans. I'm Alyssa Blask Campbell. I have a master's degree in early childhood education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am walking this journey right alongside you doing this work. Come hang out with me at Voices of Your Village, and we can dive into real conversations with actionable tips.